Greetings, friends. I'm AK.
And I'm Laura.
And we are
the Chainsaw Girls. On today's episode, this was a recommendation from you, AK.
Yes, it was.
And I'm a little embarrassed to admit that I have never seen this movie.
I am a little embarrassed to admit that I only saw it within the last year.
Okay, that makes me feel less bad.
Yeah, I didn't see this a long time ago. It's more recent for me as well.
Okay, so we are covering the 1990 classic Frankenhooker. I'm so excited.
Yes, please take it away. I want to know what you thought about this movie. And actually, why don't we start with the IMDb summary?
Yes. Okay, let's do it. Okay. A medical student sets out to recreate his decapitated fiancée by building her a new body made out of Manhattan street prostitutes.
That's IMDb's quote, not ours.
Not ours. Okay, it was directed by Frank Henenlotter.
Mm-hmm.
It had a budget of, IMDb says 1.5 million. Wikipedia says 2.5 million. I'm going to go with 1.5 million, and it grossed 205,000. Now, again, this is Wikipedia, so
yeah.
I don't know if it's correct or not, but
it definitely had a resurgence after the box office.
yes, I think it is now considered a cult classic, would you say?
Yeah, I think a lot of the movies we've been covering, especially from the 80s, have turned into that since.
And our director here also directed Brain Damage and one of my favorite movies, Basket Case, Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3.
I don't know if I saw all three of those. I've definitely seen at least one.
I've seen 1 or 2. 1 and 2. I don't think I've seen 3.
Okay.
And then just for reference, this movie came out on June 1st, 1990. And in June 1990, Gremlins 2 also came out. And in the summer of 1990, The Exorcist 3 came out, Arachnophobia, and Ghoulies Go to College.
So they had a lot of competition.
Yes, they did, for sure.
Also, just for your edification, if you do want to watch this movie before you listen to our spoilers that we're about to get into, it is currently, at the time of this recording, streaming on Peacock and Tubi.
I highly recommend you watch it, especially if you're going to listen to the podcast, because this movie is absolutely wild.
It is, yes, that's a great way to describe it. It is. And you can go into this and watch it as, oh, this is a campy, fun, silly movie, or you can find deeper meanings in a lot of it.
Of course, absolutely. With most horror movies, right? Like, even though the director doesn't consider this a horror movie, he actually says that he doesn't consider it a horror movie at all.
Yeah, that he intended to make a comedy, which it also is.
It definitely is. It also maybe is considered a love story.
Sure.
Sure. A really dysfunctional love story. And obviously it is loosely based off of the classic Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Yes.
Loosely.
We cannot emphasize enough.
That's
loosely.
Right. Loosely. All right. Do you want to just get started? Want to dive in?
Yeah, let's get started. Let's meet our characters.
Okay. So I think it's very important that we, set the stage here. We have Jeffrey, played by James Lorenz. He is fantastic in this.
He is.
And we also, obviously, are Frankenhooker, aka Elizabeth, is played by Patty Mullen.
Yes.
Patty Mullen, she's fantastic in this.
Yes.
She only has a couple credits.
Yeah, and I think you told me she was like the Penthouse Pet of the Month and Pet of the Year, which I have feelings about that term, but it's okay. We're going to move along.
Okay, wait. I do have to tell you a little tidbit that I'm so excited to talk about. But Patty, oh my God, this is amazing. It always goes back to wrestling, guys. It always does.
Yes. You told me you had something to tell me.
Yeah, so Patty was a judge at Clash of the Champions, and I want to say 1988. Ric Flair had his title on the line against Sting, and the match went to a draw, and Patty voted for Ric Flair to retain his title.
Was she so she was one of multiple judges?
She was one of the judges.
I have questions. I don't know if you have the answers.
I probably don't, but I was so like, when I saw, I'm like, of course there's wrestling. Of course. It's what is it, the 6 degrees of separation?
All roads lead to wrestling.
No, they really do. They really do. So I thought that was a really fun little tidbit.
Also, the characters have little nods to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein as well. So Elizabeth's last name is Shelley.
Oh, yeah.
Number 1.
I love that.
And then also Jeffrey is Jeffrey Franken.
I did not catch that.
They only show it. I don't think I noticed it until I rewatched it. It shows it on the news, I want to say, when he was interviewed for a second. Jeffrey Franken.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
you're right. I totally did not catch that. So excellent catch there, AK. Love that. And also, you had told me that this was filmed back to back with Basket Case 2.
Yes.
And I do have a little fun trivia of the original Basket Case.
Oh.
If you've seen it, there's a scene where there's a whole bunch of cash in the motel room, and it's the lead character's, that's his money. I'm blanking on his name right now, but let's pretend we know his name. And anyways, the cash that's on the floor is actually the budget that they had for the movie. Like, that cash was literally used for the movie.
That is fantastic, and also what a risk.
No, for real. I love it. I think it's just like such a fun tidbit that obviously they had to use what they could. Apparently, Frank Hellenatter was walking in Times Square, and that's where he got some inspiration for Basket Case.
Wow.
Because at the time, Times Square was pretty gross.
And they were both being filmed in that same area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I don't know. I think that's kind of fun. And
That
honestly,
is.
I love like gritty New York City.
Oh, like 80s Times Square?
I love it. If the setting is Times Square or New York in general in the 80s, like, I'm all about it.
I love it in the sense that I never would have wanted to physically be there. But observing it, sure.
Right. I don't know. I kind of
I'd
wish
be scared.
Yeah, scared, but I kind of wish that I was old enough to like see it.
See it, but if I was driving through it.
Okay, fair.
I didn't have
fair.
to stop anywhere.
Fair. I mean, I was born in 86, so I would have been a toddler. Maybe I shouldn't be a toddler in New York City Times Square. Okay, we digress. As we do.
So the movie opens, we meet Jeffrey, and he's working on something. He's working on it looks like a brain with an eyeball.
Yes, and wait, I can interject something on this?
Yes, please
because
do.
I had so many questions about the brain.
Yes, okay, yeah.
I was like, what is he working on? What is this? And apparently the brain eyeball is based off the poster, The Brain That Wouldn't Die. And I guess that's what that is in reference to.
Okay. To me, I just thought, okay, they threw something wacky together, and that's what he's working on because he is a med school dropout, they imply? Or like
I think he's been kicked out of multiple med schools, apparently.
Yeah.
And so, but he's a mad scientist, right? And that's what I would classify him as.
Definitely a mad scientist. At some point, they say in his spare time, he's a doctor.
Of course he is.
I think Elizabeth tells us that later.
Yeah.
I think she calls him a bioelectrical technician. Sure.
Okay.
He's a mad scientist.
Yep.
That's what we're going with.
Sure.
And he's working on this brain eyeball thing. It's in a jar. He's poking at it. He gives it some type of lobotomy
Yeah,
to
he
make
says,
it.
doesn't he say, he goes, just a little bit, and there was something, and he takes a hammer, and then he puts it down, and then he grabs a tiny hammer, and he...
Yes, and he is making it react to him. So he wants it to follow him, and clearly he's doing weird stuff. And his mom walks in. This is normal. She's not disturbed by this at all.
Okay, can I... That's not his mom.
What?
That's her mom.
Oh!
And no, listen, I thought that was his mom.
Yeah.
Because she walks in and she's like, what's interesting about the scene is they're in the kitchen and nobody seems to think it's weird that he's working on this brain eyeball. And the ketchup is like in the middle of the table with all of his weird shit around it. And she just strolls in and she's like, oh, I need the ketchup. And she like grabs it and totally no-sells that he's giving this brain a lobotomy.
Yeah. I assumed that was his mom for sure.
The only reason I know it's not is because we see his mom later in the movie.
That's right. Oh, I totally forgot about that. Even though I wrote notes about her too.
No, but and also I honestly thought Elizabeth and Jeffrey were siblings until like the next scene. Like I was like, "Oh, that's his sister."
Yeah. And then they're very affectionate and you're like, "I hope that's not his sister."
Mhm. Yeah.
But Jeffrey is inside the house working on this brain eyeball while there's a party going on outside. And that's why the mom comes in, grabs the ketchup. She needs it to take it outside for the hot dogs, burgers, whatever. And we learned that this is Elizabeth's father's birthday.
Yes.
And it's a party for him.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, I mean, on one hand, I love that her parents are supporting this relationship and they support her partner. On the other hand, I'm like, okay.
Okay, it's a choice.
I would maybe encourage him to come join the party. Don't be rude.
Well, what's so disturbing about this? Well, for many reasons, but Elizabeth's mother mentions to her, by the way, Elizabeth is gorgeous.
Yes.
She's beautiful. She's super like sweet and kind. At least that's, she comes across very sweet, kind.
Yeah.
She loves Jeffrey. She speaks very highly of him. And she's eating some pretzels. And her mother says to her, something along the lines of you should watch how many pretzels you're eating or something, implying that she needs to be dieting.
Yeah.
I was so upset that she even said that because Elizabeth looks amazing. Like, I did not...
She's gorgeous.
She's gorgeous.
The actress is a Penthouse... I keep wanting to say Playmate, but I know that's Playboy. But yeah, she's like in Penthouse. She's a gorgeous... And also, I noticed in this scene that I could tell they were trying to make her look like she was quote-unquote overweight.
Which is so crazy. I mean, to be honest, like...
But I think it really is because of what happens later that they wanted to emphasize...
Yes.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
But it's so awful that her mother would put these ideas in her head that she's not beautiful the way that she is.
Or that she can't eat a handful of pretzels.
Yeah,
like really?
That. Eat whatever you want. Nobody should be policing what you're eating ever. Yes. It made me so angry. Yeah. I was like, oh, poor Elizabeth.
And thinking about when that does happen in real life to people, it's very upsetting. I know this is just a movie, but that really happens.
I was like, Elizabeth. And then her friend comes over to her and is kind of talking about, you know, Jeffrey, and she's explaining to her friend that Jeffrey stapled her stomach for her so that she could be thinner. Mm-hmm. And her friend is like horrified. Her friend goes, what? Is he a doctor? And she's like, well, kind of a doctor.
That's where she says that he's a doctor in his spare time. And she's like, you let him operate on you? And she's going through this whole thing. And that's where she explains to her friend that her mom thinks she's too fat. And they gave her like a big loose t-shirt. So you can tell they're trying to make it, you just can't see what her body actually looks like here because you'll see it later.
Yeah, right, exactly.
When it's supposed to be a different body.
Yes. But yeah, so the whole scene was like, it was interesting, and it kind of gives you a little bit insight into Elizabeth and her family life, her home life, and her relationship with Jeffrey, because she really does love Jeffrey.
She does. It feels genuine.
It does, and I think he loves her too. Caveats. We'll get to that.
Yeah, I think he does too. I think he's just a little misguided. Maybe. We'll see. But it's her dad's birthday, and so Elizabeth got him a lawnmower. Not just a lawnmower for his birthday, but a souped-up lawnmower that Jeffrey, of course, souped up.
Yes.
And so she reveals it. It's like a big... I'm not that well-versed in lawnmowers, but it's like a big... I want to say open-mouthed lawnmower, but it's not just a normal push mower or the kind that has the blade on the bottom. No. It almost looks like... something you would use for a farm. Big wide open mouth. Okay, she's standing in front of it.
Okay, but hold on, you have to mention that the big open mouth is very low to the ground. Like it would hit her ankles. Yeah. Like if that. It's not like a snowblower, the size of a snowblower. Right. It's like the size of, I don't know, just Google it, look it up. It's hard to describe, but it's not as big. It's not as big as the scene makes you feel like it is. Yeah.
So she is telling the dad how to use this lawnmower, and she goes, you push this button, you push that button. As she's pushing the button, Jeffrey is saying, well, don't stand in front of it. And
he's not even saying it loud, though.
He's like mumbling it to himself.
Yeah, like he's like, well, don't stand in front of it. It's like, you gotta yell that, because she's not listening to you.
Clearly she doesn't hear you. She definitely didn't. She's pushing the button. The lawnmower starts moving by itself, because that was the whole thing. It was souped up. You don't even have to push it. Yeah. Which, fast forward.
It's remote control.
They make push mowers now lawnmowers that kind of like push themselves a little bit. You have to be there to guide it.
It's very uncomfortable.
But it helps.
It makes me feel like the machines are taking over.
It only helps a little bit. Like it kind of has a pull to it so that you don't have to push as hard. So I mean, a lot of people like them.
I don't mow my lawn, so honestly, I don't think I've ever mowed a lawn.
That's okay. Not everyone does. Okay, so she pushes the button. The lawnmower starts going. She turns, and of course, instead of running or anything like that, she has her hands up in the air and just does a very classic, like, 80s cheesy scream.
She could have easily just stepped out of the way.
She had a good 5 seconds at the very least to just take one step to the side.
That lawnmower was not going fast.
No, and as you mentioned, it's like at her ankles.
Yeah, so maybe like her feet would get it.
But if you think, I think sometimes in movies like this, or just movies in general, they'll depict something like that. If it catches you, it pulls you through. So if it like knocked her over, it would have like just mowed over her whole body. I don't know why I did this with my hands, like a rabbit.
I guess so. So she gets run over by the lawnmower, and sadly, she passes away.
That's putting it lightly. Passes away sounds like something gentle happened. Okay. Like she just died in her sleep. No. She gets mauled by this lawnmower, okay? So, then the next scene.
We have Jeffrey, and he is looking very tired.
Yeah. progressively.
He's had a rough time. And he's watching a news clip. And when I first watched this, I couldn't figure out if it was happening in real time or this was something that's happened a while ago. You pointed out that it was actually a tape that he's watching. He's rewatching this news clip.
I think it's implied when his actual mother comes in.
Right.
She says, like, how many times are you going to watch this? So I'm assuming it's a VHS recording of this news show or the news episode.
Okay, and I do think it's really important that that we touch on what the news reporter says exactly in the news report. And I quote, "What began as a birthday barbecue ended in a bizarre tragedy in New Jersey today. It was this power mower that brought a quick end to the life of 21-year-old bride-to-be Elizabeth Shelley. Like wood through a mulcher, the mirthful fiance disappeared beneath the blades."
Okay, I'm sorry. I did not intend that to be that long. I was laughing at mirthful. Why did you call her mirthful?
I don't even know what
Sorry,
that
continue.
means. Okay. Beneath the blades of the berserk mower that sent her personality raining down upon the birthday revelers. In a blaze of blood, bones, and body parts, the vivacious young girl was instantly reduced to a tossed human salad. A salad that police are still trying to gather up. A salad that was once named Elizabeth. I'm literally crying.
I have tears coming out of my eyes right now.
Okay, and then our news anchor interviews one of the detectives, the lead detective on the case, and he explains that some of her body parts are missing, including her head. And he describes her as one giant jigsaw puzzle. And the anchor says, "A jigsaw puzzle?" And our detective, very deadpan, says, "A jigsaw puzzle."
Very seriously.
Very serious. Okay.
So I do also want to say that right before this, the opening credits show Jeffrey kind of mapping out a body and the machines that would need to go into it to maybe, I don't know, revive a body, for example. This is important just because, well, it's kind of setting the scene, but also you can hear Jeffrey mumbling to himself about, oh, I want to get rid of that. I want to get rid of that mole. Something about a chicken leg. He's clearly trying to
Create the perfect woman.
Yes.
The perfect woman in his eyes.
Yes. And so then the mother, they have this whole interaction with the mother, right?
Yes, the mother comes in and she's very concerned for Jeffrey. And she says something to the effect of, "You need to move on. When are you going to find yourself a new girl?"
Yes. And I remember we talked about this because we're like, hold up, what?
Like he just lost her. How, like, what is his mother talking about?
And at the same time, I know we also we were wondering, how long has it been? They don't make it clear.
Right.
So even then, it would not be okay to tell someone to get over it. But we were curious because he's been watching this tape however many times. It could have been a long time. Either way, he's very distraught. I actually do feel bad for Jeffrey here because he looks so just depleted and exhausted.
Yeah.
And he's mourning the loss of the love of his life, as far as we know.
Yes, and he goes on to tell his mother, he basically tells her that he's descending into madness.
Yes.
It's a really intense scene.
But Jeffrey is going on to say he doesn't know the difference between right and wrong anymore. It's so funny to me because I didn't write down every single thing he said, but it's his own little monologue. And then the mother responds with, "Do you want a sandwich?"
That cracked me the up.
Yes.
She doesn't even know what to say, so she offers him a sandwich. She also points out that the brain with the eye is now actually following her with his eye. So the brain actually is like working, and she puts that over.
Yes.
She's like, "Wow, this is amazing." And Jeffrey, he doesn't seem to really care too much about that.
No, I think if anything, that's just showing us that, okay, he does know what he's doing. Clearly he has some skills bringing things to life.
Yes.
Because then we're going to go into what I would describe as his lab, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's definitely his lab. And he's kind of working on this, like you were mentioning before, like this diagram where he's piecing together what he's going to do and how he's going to resurrect our gal.
Yes, it does pan out of that diagram at one point and show that he has put a picture of Elizabeth's head. It's like a full life-size outline of a body that he is editing or revising here and trying to figure out which battery to put where and figuring out how he's going to revive a person. But yes, with a headshot of Elizabeth
so
at the top.
It seems like the only thing that he really physically enjoys about Elizabeth is her head. And it's revealed that her head is inside his freezer. Like, he's got one of those deep freezers. Is that what it's called? Deep freezer. Yeah. Filled with, like, red liquid, but it also looks, like, smoky.
Yeah.
And it's revealed that her head is being, would you say, like, it's not decaying?
It's not at all. I assume whatever that liquid was, it's preserving.
It's preserving. That's the word we're looking for. It's it's preserving her. And Jeffrey, at this point, is kind of explaining to her, like, he's going to bring her back.
Yes.
Like, don't worry. I'm going to bring you back. And then he wants to have, like, a nice dinner with her.
Yeah, he's talking to the head. I think at one point he says, "Do you want Italian?"
The best part about it is when he's having dinner with her, he lifts up like a gimmick and it's just a slice of pizza.
Like the looking pizza you could possibly have.
It really did look like he had been sitting there for a long time. And he's also feeding her red wine.
Yeah.
And it's just dripping down her face, like underneath her.
Like through her neck.
Through her neck. And the way that he's talking to her is similar to, like, I think how you would, like, talk to kind of like an animal. Like, he's like, it's kind of how I talk to my dog when I want him to eat. Like, I'm like, good job. Yeah, just eat it up. Like,
very infantilizing.
Yes, that's the word. Yes. It made me so uncomfortable. Not just that it's a head, that the way he was talking to her.
Yes, he's clearly
unhinged?
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that. I mean, he is talking to a severed head, having a candlelit dinner with it. Or her, I guess I should say, because this is Elizabeth.
It is right? Elizabeth. Yeah. At least her head.
At least her head. And he starts showing her diagrams of what he wants to build her into. So this is really, knowing this is why I think the opening scene and the opening credits of him doing this diagram is more disturbing, because we already know what exactly he's doing, especially the comments about, like, I'm going to remove that mole. Like, I love random quirks about people.
Me too.
What do you mean you want to remove this and tighten that? And
it's gross.
It is gross, knowing, especially this part I think is even more gross, because he starts showing the head a bunch of these little diagrams that he made. It's all pictures of Elizabeth's actual face, plastered over all nude bodies.
Like magazine cutouts of women.
Yes.
Like different breasts, different arms, different legs, like...
Yeah, these are not medically nude women. They are very sexually nude.
Yeah, like from a magazine.
Yes.
Yes, and yeah, sexually suggestive for sure.
Yeah.
And he's got them on, like, Bristol board, and he's kind of doing, like, a slideshow of them, and he's showing them to her. I don't know. Is he expecting her to pick which one she likes?
I think he's just losing it.
Yeah, that's true.
He's losing it. And he says at one point, someone has to die for you to live. Which, I'm sure a lot of people feel like there's someone out there that people say all the time, oh, I would kill for this person. You know? Mm-hmm. But...
He's literally... He's taking that very literal.
Very literally.
Yeah.
We cannot condone violence.
No, please don't do that.
Just for the record, and legal purposes.
We're not advising you to do that.
Okay, so this scene you hate.
I do?
Yes.
Which scene is this?
It's when he starts giving himself a lobotomy.
Oh my God. It was making me physically cringe. And there's not even any blood.
No, there's not. And
he pulls out, like, a huge drill with, like, a giant bit on the end. Like, one of those long ones that you would, like, I don't know, drill through, like, drywall with or something.
Yeah, very driller killer of him.
Very driller killer.
If you watch our Slumber Party Massacre 2 episode.
I love it. But yeah, he proceeds to drill into the back of his head, like, giving himself a lobotomy. I was so uncomfortable that when we rewatched it, I wouldn't watch the scene. Yeah,
you, like, had your eyes closed. It's interesting because my perspective was that it was done in a very comical way, that I didn't cringe.
Sure.
Because you don't, actually at one point it does do a close up, but you don't Yeah, there's no blood. That helps. And it's just funny that he's casually drilling into the back of his head and he's talking. You can tell he's thinking. It's his thinking drill. He has to use his thinking drill. And he's just like, "Zzz," and he's like, yeah, and then I'm gonna, and he's like reasoning with himself.
Yeah, it's so disturbing. And after he does it, he's kind of like, oh. Like, it's like he enjoyed it. I don't know. There's something about that made my skin crawl. Like, the thought of it, drilling into my skull.
Okay, well, when you say it like that.
No, but that's literally what I was thinking. I'm like, oh.
Why, when I was doing this with my finger to show you, like to demonstrate on video, I'm actually stabbing myself in the neck with my nail. Why was I pushing that hard down?
You just wanted to feel it. You wanted to know.
You wanted to know. Very meta acting. Yeah.
It really does. It really does disturb me, and it honestly made me think about that lobotomies actually did happen, and so many people experienced lobotomies, and was just so awful. I can't even imagine that was a legal practice. It's terrifying. So I think that's why true. It was so disturbing.
If he did it through the nose or the eye, I would have felt differently about it. But yeah, that's usually when the movies start to sit with me in a bad way. When I stop disconnecting and I start going, wait a minute, this really happens. That's when I start to get a little fucked up about it.
Yeah, agreed. So was that. That was why I was so grossed out.
But during his thinking drill, he realizes that he needs parts. And he needs a bunch of parts if he wants to put together Elizabeth.
A new version of Elizabeth.
So, I was going to say some thoughts here, but I think I'm going to wait until we get a little further.
Okay.
So, he decides he realizes, I can lure in parts. I can lure in bodies. I have money. I think he says something about, I have my Christmas fund or Christmas something, that he can lure in bodies with money. So he goes out and tries to find people that he might be able to lure with money. So where does he go?
Downtown.
He goes to Skid Row.
Looking for sex workers.
Yes.
Essentially.
He goes to pick up several sex workers and he wants to secure these body parts. He's scouting, essentially.
He is. He's looking at women and just kind of picking out ooh, those legs are nice, or this is that, or it's just very... gross.
Very objectifying, for sure.
Very objectifying.
He is on a mission.
Yeah, he wants to find the perfect parts.
Yes. So, my first thought is, maybe I'm jumping ahead with my thoughts. It's okay, we can touch on it as we go. But my first thought is well, you didn't think Elizabeth was perfect?
I know.
But she did get mowed over with a lawnmower, so...
She did. However, I feel like... at some point along the way, Jeffrey already thought there were things about Elizabeth that needed to be fixed.
Yeah.
And physically fixed. And I don't think it was just because she was ran over by a lawnmower. I really do think that he already was like, I don't really like this about her. Yeah. You know, because I think in the back of his brain, he obviously thought that she could be improved upon.
Well, yeah, that opening scene says it. When he's picking out little things he's going to change. Already. And also here I'm thinking, wait, you need several parts and you're looking at her legs and her breasts and her butt.
Like he's going shopping.
He is. He's shopping for parts. And that means, how are you going to get these parts? We don't know yet, but you're going to take, instead of just saying, Elizabeth is the love of my life, I want to bring her back to life, I will sacrifice a life if I have to. This isn't one life.
No.
You're looking at several lives now.
Yeah, he's a piece of he's horrible.
If you're going to, I assume, we'll get there. Okay.
That's why I loosely said it's a love story.
Yeah.
Because on the first watch, I was kind of that was my impression for a while. I was he just really wants to bring her back to life. And then I was like, oh, no. He basically looks at her like she's a car and he's going to go get he's going to soup her up.
Yeah.
He really does.
He is going to soup her up like he souped up the lawnmower.
No, for real.
Oh my gosh, I didn't think about that.
It's wild.
So he's on the street, he is soliciting sex workers, and he tells one of the girls that he needs 6 or 7 girls. And she's like, he flashes some money, she's excited about it.
Of course, yeah.
She calls over her girls, and then one of the other girls says, okay, but you're gonna have to check with Zorro first.
Who's Zorro?
My man Zorro.
Oh man, he is.
It's so interesting, the amount of actors in this movie that only have a couple credits because I think they were so good in their roles.
I thought Zorro played that part really well. He was awful.
Yes, he is essentially the pimp.
He is, yes. Yeah. And it's very important to note that Zorro, yes, he is their pimp, and he got them and is in the process of getting them all hooked on drugs.
Yes, he also brands them on their arm with a Z, a matching Z to what his necklace emblem is.
Yes, and one of the sex workers does say something like about being branded down by her private parts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she does mention something about a brand. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes, he's exploiting, obviously, these women. I mean, he's a pimp. And he has them hooked on, and they specify crack.
Yes, that is what they say. Because the sex worker takes Jeffrey through this club, I would say it is, where every activity you can imagine is happening. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
It's wild.
Okay? And he notices that everyone in the bathroom is on this drug.
Yep.
And they're all going crazy over it. He asks Zorro, even though he's there to ask, hey, can I have 6 or 7 girls? He also wants to know, where can I get one of those little baggies?
Yes, because he sees Zorro handing the drugs out.
Yes, and sees how excited the sex workers are for it.
Yeah, he's observing everything, which is so... The fact that his mind even goes there is just horrifying.
Yeah, because...
He's a scary little... Like, he really is.
He is, and So, okay, I'm gonna move along. I keep wanting to say what I think about certain aspects of it, but I'm like, let's just get there first.
Okay, wait, before we move on, can
Yes.
I also mention there's 2 or 3 people in a bathroom stall, and they're getting freaky, and the bathroom stall door just keeps opening and closing, and I don't know why, I just thought that was so funny.
It reminded me, even though there are at least two people having sex in that stall, it reminded me of I don't even know what they would call it, but like a station in a haunted house.
Oh my god!
Because the door keeps opening and they keep closing it,
then
the door keeps opening,
like almost like a jump scare.
So like every 2 minutes they gotta open this door so the next group sees it. It just felt like
it was goofy.
Yeah,
it was really silly, and I think it's really important to also note, like, we're dissecting the movie obviously, and we're kind of talking through it, but it's very silly. Like, yeah, you know, yes, it is got a lot of interesting things happening in it, but it is super silly at the same time.
Yes. It is interesting how they combine that. It's very campy, very silly. Also, it definitely has a deeper message if you want to look that far.
If you want to, absolutely. But you can just enjoy it because it is a fun ride.
Yeah, for sure. So the next scene, we see that Jeffrey has apparently bought a bunch of this crack.
Yes, he's in his lab with his pile of crack.
Yes, it is a giant jar now of what he calls super crack.
Super crack. And they're like huge, big ass like rocks.
Yes.
It almost looks like do you remember those like candy rocks? Like it's on a stick.
Oh yeah.
You know, those were so good, but that's kind of what it looks like.
That's true. I'm just imagining. Okay. And I'm like, I wonder what it tastes like. Anyway, so he is making this quote unquote super crack, and he is using his thinking drill again to rationalize and make himself feel better that he wants to use this in order to kill a bunch of the sex workers quickly. So he's like
he's doing them a favor.
Yes. He's like, I'm not killing anyone. It's their choice if they want to take the crack. I'm just putting it in front of them. Like, he's saying all this.
Which is so horrible because he full on knows that these are drug addicts. And they're being exploited. And it's awful. And he knows all this, but he rationalizes everything that he does.
Yeah. Not only is he willing to kill 6 or 7 people.
He doesn't care.
But he's not even going to do it himself.
No, of course not.
He's trying, they're just dying. I'm just taking these body
it's their choice.
Right.
He's the worst. But the super crack, I have to admit, when he pulled that out, I was crying. I was like, what am I watching?
Yeah.
And then he does experiment on a guinea pig, and full disclosure, I fast forwarded.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not about that. I can't watch a guinea pig explode. Just can't.
That was my next note, that he tests it on a gerbil. I wrote gerbil, but it probably is a guinea pig.
And I love guinea pigs. Aww. I had one when I was a kid, and his name was Gordon.
Gordon
the guinea pig.
That's cute.
I love him.
Well, I'm glad he did not inhale super crack fumes, because he would have exploded.
He would have.
That's what happened to this one.
Oh, God.
And I found it interesting. It was just from inhaling the fumes, which I guess that makes sense because they're going to smoke it, right?
I guess so.
Never mind.
Know. I don't even know. Yeah, I guess
Never mind. That makes sense. But yes, Jeffrey is saying to himself, they could just say no. Like, it's such a victim-blaming mentality, which we already know is so prevalent in society, even today.
Yeah, he's the worst, okay? He's just awful.
The worst.
I mean, and he's drilling himself in the head, man. Like... Okay.
Yes. He is clearly having problems with his logical thinking, his critical thinking skills.
Yeah, I would say so.
So the next scene, we see that Jeffrey is now, we thought there were about 9 girls in this room. Maybe there weren't.
We might have counted wrong.
That's true. We might have counted wrong. He is dressed as like an old school physician with like the head mirror and everything.
And like a coat, right?
Yeah.
He's got like a lab coat
the lab coat and everything. And there are a bunch of girls in this room, and the main sex worker that we met in the earlier scene is now telling the other girls what the deal is. Yeah. Okay? Mm-hmm. So this is Jeffrey. This is Jersey Boy. Sorry.
This is Jersey Boy.
This is Jersey Boy.
That's important. It comes into play later.
Yes. And he is going to play doctor. He's dressed as a doctor, so okay. And she goes through more details, and they're just like, all right, whatever. Like, let's play doctor. This is going to be the easiest night of my life.
But my favorite thing about this scene is as he's going around, like, essentially marking what body parts on which woman he wants. Ugh. There's one part where he's, like, measuring. Oh, my God, it's so gross. He's measuring, I think, her leg or her calf or something. And he says something, like, I don't know if he compliments or he says something. And she just, like, rolls her eye. Like, do you remember what I'm talking about?
Oh,
it, like, pans up to her and she looks so disinterested and annoyed and just like, why am I here?
Yeah, he says something about like, these are great. And she's like, oh, yeah.
Thanks. Or something. Like, it's so... And the girls don't know, obviously, that what is in store for them at all. And I believe, like... I think they are confused about the whole thing, and they get progressively irritated by him.
Yes, they're definitely annoyed, but they're also kind of messing with him. They're having fun with each other.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that they would probably assume, okay, this is just some guy who has a little doctor fetish. Yeah, this is his kink. You want to measure my body parts and I get paid? Easy night.
Right, sure. I guess so. But as the scene progresses, he starts to get second thoughts. He starts to feel like he starts thinking like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. He kind of starts to feel like he's made the wrong decision and he's backing out.
That's true.
And the sex workers are all getting more and more irritated by this because he's sort of like holding on to his like tote and talking to himself.
Yeah. And now they're thinking, oh, he's not going to pay us.
He's not going to pay us. Yes, that's exactly what they jump to. And they start telling him like, no, you're going to pay us. You're going to give us the money. And because he's so self-involved and all he cares about is building this, you know, Frankenhooker, he kind of gets snippy with them and is like, all you care about is money and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, who are you to lecture anyone?
You're judging them when all you care about is building the quote-unquote perfect woman.
You're judging them and you're drilling holes inside your own head.
You're like, judging them when you're about to kill them.
All of them.
Whether you think it's intentional or that it's your hand doing it or not.
It's so absurd. It's so absurd. And so, in an act of like, I guess, irritation, he throws the bag of money at the girls.
Yes.
And they open it up and they're super thrilled because now they've got a whole bunch of cash.
Yes. And then they also notice in that suitcase or whatever it is, the little man purse, that there's a bunch of drugs.
A big, big bag of super crack.
And the reaction that they have to this bag of super crack. I wish I was this excited about anything ever.
I don't think I've ever been that excited for anything in my life.
I have never squealed in the manner in which that woman squealed.
Can I tell you what my closed captioning said?
Oh, yes, please.
And this is not me saying this, okay? This is, and I quote, this is my closed captioning. The subtitles say, hookers scream excitedly. Just in case we weren't sure.
That is exactly what happens. But her reaction, like, she's like,
giddy, dancing. Yeah. They all start freaking the out.
Yes, they're so happy, and they immediately start smoking it.
There's one part in that where one of the girls has, like, a big rock, and she's trying to shove it into, like, I don't know how you smoke crack, okay? So I could be wrong, but it's like, it looks like a little tube, and she's trying to shove this gigantic rock in it. The entire
rock in it?
Yes, exactly. And they all start smoking.
And they're having a great time.
They're partying.
They're pretty much already naked, so tits are already out. So party time, right?
Yeah, they kind of like forget that he's even in the room.
Oh yeah, they're dancing, they're smoking.
And he's going, no, don't smoke it. Stop, please stop. He's trying to tell him to stop.
Some of them start making out. Like, it's a party now.
It's a party.
It's definitely a party.
Yes.
So we see Zorro now in the lobby, And Zorro, by the way, we didn't really describe what he looks like. Very 80s pimp, except also a professional wrestler.
He does look like a professional wrestler.
It looks like he's wearing Zubas in this scene in particular.
You pointed that out, and even his tank top looked very like wrestling coated.
Like a stringer with the zebra printed Zubas.
No, for real.
And he has a mustache also. That's important, I feel like, for the whole aesthetic.
Yeah, and he does. He hears the girls having a good time.
Yes, and he's also complaining really to the guy in the lobby that they're taking too long.
The motel, by the way, it looks just like the motel from Basket Case, and I wonder if it's the same motel.
Oh, it probably is because they shot in the same for Basket Case 2 because they were shooting at the same time.
It looks like the one from Basket Case 1, but maybe they did shoot Basket Case 2 in it as well. It's a really seedy, dirty motel, and the front desk, if you can call it that, it almost looks like a ticket booth.
Yeah.
And he's hiding behind glass, and there's stairs that go up to where the rooms are. But it's just picture in your mind, like, dirty, gross.
Yeah.
It like it's never been washed.
Definitely doesn't have an elevator.
Yeah, no. Hell no. You're hauling those faces up the stairs. Which, by the way, okay, how horrible is it when you get to a hotel after, like, flying all day or driving or whatever, and you get there and you have, like, 1 billion bags because you're, whatever, on the road for a while, and they tell you that the elevator's out and you gotta haul that up, like, 4 flights of stairs.
The first world problems, I love them. And I have experienced that where, I will straight up, especially if they're, like, other wrestlers, like guys in the lobby, I have no problem letting them take my bags.
Oh no, I'm like, yeah, no, please.
I'm just a girl. I'm just a girl. Do you want to take this bag like this and carry it for me? Go ahead.
I'm just so tiny and small.
Any other time, I'm like carrying my friend's bags, like, let's go. But if somebody offers to carry my bag, you best believe.
All of a sudden, I'm like frail.
Legit. Anyway, sorry.
Oh my God,
sorry for that aside.
Okay, so the sex workers are having a good time, and all of a sudden, one of them says, "Oh, I don't feel so good." Please explain what happened.
This scene is so wild. I don't know how else to describe it.
I feel like it's one of the craziest scenes in a movie I've ever seen.
That is what you said to me.
Yes.
So she doesn't feel too good, and then all of a sudden, she just explodes. Okay? And there's no blood.
No, and there's sparks.
Just electricity.
Electricity, sparks, and smoke. No blood. And it almost looks like an exploding mannequin.
Yes, it goes from the real girl to all of a sudden mannequin exploding. It's so funny.
It's the best thing ever. Like,
one by one,
they all start exploding.
And then there's actually one girl, one of the last girls that explodes. She's trying to crawl to a door. And she's like on all fours as she reaches up to the door. And when they cut to her mannequin, it's a full body, like, paper mache prop, it looks like. It's so funny.
When you called it paper mache, it's like when you called the girl in Blood Diner Hush Puppy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God.
If you go back and watch this clip, the girl that's at the door, bending over by the door, look at her butt. It looks like paper mache.
And it just explodes. And honestly, it's kind of sad for a second because for a minute I thought she was going to get away because she, like, kind of reaches for the door and I was like, oh no, she's going to make it. And then...
Yeah. And then the last girl, the main sex worker, I wish I wrote down her name, but there were so many names thrown out, I forget which one was hers. Mm-hmm. But when she explodes, it's when Zorro gets to the room, he bursts through the door, she explodes, her head flies and knocks him down.
And knocks him out.
Like, headbutts him.
Like a flying headbutt, legit.
Literally. It was a flying headbutt.
And
oh my gosh.
And it knocks him out.
Knocks him out.
Knocks him out cold. Knocked out by a flying head.
So Jeffrey is like, oh, and he just grabs all the body parts he can.
He is, like, scrambling. He is grabbing legs, arms. He's just grabbing it all.
Because what else are you going to do? You know, I don't know.
They already exploded. I might as well take their bodies. That's his logic.
Yeah.
He goes, well, they chose.
I didn't make them explode.
Sure
the crack did.
It wasn't me.
The crack that I created did. I was going to say, I guess at first I was thinking, well, he didn't know that it was going to have that reaction, but he did, because that's what happened to the gerbil.
Yeah, he does know. And honestly, there was a part of me that was like, wait, if they're all exploding, how is he going to have any body parts?
Right.
Because I was confused by that at first, but then when I saw the way they exploded, I was like, oh.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, I see Jeffrey's logic, I guess.
So he takes all the body parts, he goes back to his lab. He's going through, there's like a trash can full of legs. He has separated all the body parts.
There's a pile of breasts.
I wrote a pile of tits.
No, there really is. Like, and they look like kind of like a foam, right?
Yeah, they probably were foam, and he is trying to match them. He's trying to match a pair.
Yes, he is.
Of the perfect breast, which you would think would be the same. You don't think that two random breasts, but whatever. I don't know.
I don't know. Well, I don't know what his style is, but he also picks up a foot. He's like looking through the legs, and he's like, oh no, not this one, not this. There it is.
Yeah.
And he pulls out a leg, and he pulls out the other leg, and he takes her over to a table, and he notices something, and he notices, and he goes, oh, not bunions.
Yeah, that she has bunions. And then
No, he goes, oh my God, bunions. And he pulls out something to start a file to shave her bunions off.
And the final touch, of course, is Elizabeth's head that he has been preserving. It's also important to note here that he dumps all the other body parts in the freezer with that purplish, reddish liquid.
And he's telling them, I'm going to put you together. Don't worry, I'm going to put you together. So I think in his brain, he thinks, like, everything's going to be okay as long as I reanimate them.
Yeah, he's rationalizing it with his thinking drill. He's telling himself that, oh, it's okay. I'm only killing them temporarily. Yeah. I would imagine is what he's thinking. But one thing I noticed here, and I pointed out to you when we rewatched, is that I was very surprised when I first watched this movie that at this point, I'm like, oh, we still haven't met Frankenhooker. And the movie is over halfway through.
Yes.
I thought that was very interesting. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, me too. I thought she was going to come on the scene a lot earlier.
But there's still so much to happen.
This is wild.
Yes.
This scene is crazy. It is very much Frankenstein.
Yeah.
He lifts the, because there's a storm brewing. There's a storm coming.
Of course there is. What perfect timing.
Perfect timing. And the table that Elizabeth is on starts levitating up into the sky.
Like 5 stories into the sky.
It is so high up.
How did you... I know that you're a mad scientist, but that is like the longest pole you would have had to have installed underground.
And it's so sturdy. Like, there's no swaying. It is rock solid. And she's up in the air, and the lightning strikes. And if you've seen Frankenstein, I'm sure that you can visualize this.
Yes.
Right.
And lightning hits it, and lightning also goes through all the way to the freezer.
Sure does.
Important little side note there. So then we meet Frankenhooker, who is of course made up of several different body parts, also several different skin tones. She's made up of several different people.
She has, yep.
She has purple hair. She has a purple 2-piece outfit, a bra and a skirt, a matching purple purse. Nice little touch.
I think she looks awesome.
She looks amazing. She has black thigh-high fishnets, black platform shoes.
And the big platform similar to, obviously, our OG, Frankenstein's monster.
Yes.
Which I thought that was a nice touch.
Yes.
And she even walks like Frankenstein.
Of course.
I know people say Frankenstein's monster, but I feel like you guys know what I'm talking about.
You know what she's saying, and you know that we know, okay?
You know that we know that we know.
And so she has all different skin tones from all these different bodies, but her head is completely white. I'm just guessing because it was her head that was preserved in a weird way.
Yeah, like because she's dead.
Yeah.
Makes sense. It tracks for me.
So it does, yeah. So Frankenhooker only says phrases that the previous sex workers that she is made up of have said earlier in the movie.
Yes.
The first thing she says is, want a date? Going out? Looking for some action?
Got any money?
Oh, and that's the last thing she says, because then he says no and she backhands him.
It's awesome, but he is totally distraught by this.
Yes.
And God, I hate this guy so much. But he's like, Elizabeth, what's wrong? Like, he can't even conceive the fact that she wouldn't be herself.
Right.
Like,
what did you expect?
What the did you think was gonna happen?
She twitches a lot also, and
and I love the twitch. Like, she kind of snarls.
She does.
She snarls. I love it. Yeah.
I know you can't see me if you're just listening, but if you're watching on YouTube, you can.
Yes.
So she leaves.
She's like, you know what? I need to go where all my sex worker friends go.
Yeah.
And she goes downtown.
She's on the subway.
She's like kind of in like Times Square, right? She has,
yes.
Yeah. Oh my God, the subway scene.
Yes.
I loved the subway scene.
Yes. Please describe it.
She's walking through the subway, like she's on the actual tube, and she's like snarling at people, and she comes. This is so weird. She comes up to like a teenage boy.
I don't know. Yeah.
Right. I don't know how old he is, but the scene is so uncomfortable. I don't even want to describe it. It was so weird. But the gist of the subway scene is that people are seeing her.
And they're reacting.
They are.
And they're upset.
They definitely are. I mean, I would be upset.
Yeah.
Right?
But, you know, sometimes, especially if something's set in New York, I guess this is more of like a modern thing and maybe not so much an 80s thing, where things that happen in New York, I think a lot of people are desensitized to.
1,000,000%.
So if I saw this walking down the street today, I'd be like, oh, they're doing a cosplay or they're shooting a movie
or something.
Exactly.
The same in Toronto. Like, it'll happen, and honestly, like, people don't even bat an eye. They're like, whatever.
Yeah. But
I don't see it.
They know something is wrong.
They're just looking forward.
Yeah. Now, in this movie, they know something is wrong. So she takes the subway. She gets to Times Square. You had a really interesting little fact about this shot where she comes out of the subway.
Oh, yeah. So I was watching a panel with the actors, Patty and our Jeffrey actor. James. Jeffrey. Yes, James Lorenz. And they're talking about the filming of it, that they kind of had to steal some scenes and steal some shots. And the shot of her coming out of the subway was like, they didn't have a permit essentially, and they caught it as fast as they could. They got that scene.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah.
I love it. It's cool.
So funny to watch
It's a great
back.
scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she is soliciting people, right? She's trying to see who wants to go on a date, who wants to go out.
She's saying all the phrases that the previous sex workers have said. I mean, she walks through and she's saying, this here's Jersey boy. Like, she's not really making any sense. She's just... It's almost like when you have a toy and you pull the string and it just says phrases.
Yeah.
That is literally what she sounds like.
Yeah, she's just repeating everything that's already been said in the movie. So she finally finds a taker.
Look at this guy, man. When he sees her, first of all, let's describe him. He's like a short little dude. He's kind of going bald a little bit.
Yeah.
He's got like little spectacles on.
Yep.
And when he sees her, I mean, he loses his.
Yes.
He is acting as if she is the most beautiful creature he's ever seen, right?
She might be the first woman that's ever spoken to him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe. And by his reaction, I would say possibly.
Yeah, for sure.
He is so excited, and he's not even hearing what she's saying because she's clearly not with it.
Yeah. It is interesting because at certain points when she's talking to different people in the movie, she does happen to say something that could go along with what's happening. It makes that person think she is talking to them. Like,
and it's that thing when somebody wants something from you, they just hear what they want to hear, right, and they're not really paying attention to what you're actually saying. And that is a perfect example of that in this scene.
And not paying attention to that your body is all stitched together with random body parts.
Doesn't care. He doesn't care. He thinks he's about to get laid. That's all he's thinking about.
And he's gonna. Because because she takes him back to a hotel.
To the seedy motel.
Yes.
Yes.
Same motel.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and he's very familiar with it, by the way. So, repeat customer? I guess so.
Yes. So, this scene.
This scene is, I feel like we just keep saying that he's very excited, but honestly, I don't know how else to describe him.
He really, that's the best way to describe it. Like, overly excited.
Like he's kind of like bouncing on the bed.
Christmas morning.
Yeah, he's acting like a little boy.
Yeah.
Like he's acting very juvenile.
Yeah.
And just like so excited for her to climb on top of him.
That he hasn't had sex in years. Which I don't think is true because he seemed very familiar with that specific motel and sex workers in general.
I think he's just a gross little turd.
So, he's on the bed. She starts taking her clothes off.
Oh, she's got purple nipples.
I wrote that down. That was my next note. Purple nipples. Which I didn't catch the first time I watched it.
I didn't either.
Maybe I was writing while that happened. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I think it fits. She's purple.
Yeah.
She's got purple hair and
She
stuff.
got a lot of purple stuff. And I think there was a fun little fact about they were going to dye the pubic hair purple and then they ended up not going with that.
Yeah, they scratched that. But originally I think they were going to have her body double have purple pubic hair.
Yeah.
So maybe she does like maybe we can't see it because they don't show it, but maybe.
Yeah, we're just gonna envision.
I don't think they show it.
They don't.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
Correct us if we're wrong.
Yeah, purple nipples for sure though. So she gets on top. Okay, he's having the 3 seconds of his life, which
I mean, it's like he's on a roller coaster.
For those 3 seconds, yeah. I don't know that it would have lasted much longer than that anyway, but something else comes into play. And she gets on top and clearly is like riding him for a few seconds.
She's like kind of grinding on him a little bit.
Yeah.
A little over the clothing
I don't think there's over the clothing. I don't think so. I think they're having sex.
Really?
I do.
Oh,
I do.
I didn't think there was actually. I thought it was like right before.
I think any type of physical contact like that is what causes this to happen.
Oh, okay.
Where based on what happens later too.
Oh,
so
right.
I think they're having sex. Electricity starts happening, like forming through his head. He explodes.
He looks happy about it, to be honest.
He does, because his severed head flies into her hands. She's holding a severed head. And his severed head says, "That was wonderful."
You know what? I guess that's how he wanted to go out.
Talk about an explosion. You know what? Good for him.
I guess.
Talk about campy too.
So campy, so over the top. It's great. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's fantastic. I love that he talks afterwards.
I know.
It's so fitting.
I know.
It's perfect.
And then, of course, she does what? I mean, what else is she going to do? She takes his money out of his wallet and she leaves. Mm-hmm. I mean, he can't use it anymore anyway, right?
Yes, exactly. And she decides to continue her journey in New York City.
Yes, but before she leaves the hotel, we meet another one of your favorite characters, Rat Tail.
Okay, it was so hard for me to focus on the scene because this man is in one of the rooms and he comes out and oh God, do you remember exactly what he says?
Yes, I wrote it down.
Okay, please.
Not the whole dialogue, but I wrote down the main thing. So he comes out with this little rat tail and immediately just starts aggressively approaching her. There's
little rat tail. It is like a long curly rat tail. Like I don't even know what he said because I was just like, that is a full on luscious rat tail.
I mean, it was 1990. It was probably shot in 89. You know, it's still the 80s.
Yeah.
But
it was in style. He was hip.
You know, he probably was for the time. So stops her in the hallway, immediately is aggressive, and says, "How about if I stick my tongue down your throat?" Excuse me? So he tries to, and you know, she is Frankenhooker. She's not responding the way a live woman would probably respond. She just goes along with it.
She goes along with it, yeah.
But this is also why I think they were having sex in the previous scene. Once he sticks his tongue down her throat, same thing happens to him.
He explodes.
Electricity through his body. He explodes. And I was laughing so hard at this scene because what they show an outside shot of a window and a mannequin head just goes through it. They just whip a mannequin head through a window. A mannequin head with a rat tail.
It's amazing. It's incredible. We also need to note that Jeffrey is looking for her.
Yes.
He's actively trying to find her.
He's driving around.
He's running around New York City. He gets to like the Times Square area and he's asking people if they've seen a tall, purple-haired girl, essentially. Yeah. And he kind of like runs into some people and, you know, he's just frantic. So I think that's important because he is on the lookout for her.
Yes.
Our Frankenhooker stumbles into a bar.
I think the same club as before. I'm pretty sure it was.
I'm pretty sure you're right. Yeah. So Zorro is sitting at the bar. We see him sitting at the bar with this other asshole. And he looks very distraught.
Yes.
And he's kind of talking with the guy next to him. But the guy next to him isn't really paying attention because he sees Elizabeth.
Yes.
Frankenhooker.
She walks in, immediately goes for the pretzels, by the way.
I know. I was like...
That's the part of Elizabeth that's still in there.
That's still there.
Yeah.
And now she can eat the pretzels without some asshole commenting on her.
But someone does.
What?
Spike, the bartender, says something like, "You want to go easy on those pretzels?"
You're right, she does.
But here she stands up for herself, or at least she looks at her and starts growling with the pretzels in her mouth. And Spike's like,
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Which she didn't do before in the beginning of the movie.
No, she just accepted it and thought that she looked like, oh, that makes me so sad.
Yeah.
But this guy is like enamored by her.
Yes, this other guy that's hanging out with Zorro. We don't really know who he is exactly, but
he's
he starts talking to Elizabeth, Frankenhooker, and she keeps repeating these phrases. And at one point, she says a phrase that repeats Zorro's name, and Zorro hears it.
Yes, he does.
So he kind of perks up like, wait, what?
And the guy that she's talking to, which she's not really talking to, she's just talking at, he is not listening to anything she's saying at all. He is interpreting what she's saying as her coming on to him.
Yes, I think one of the things that she said was something that one of the sex workers said to Jeffrey in the beginning, which was like, oh, I got all the right parts in all the right places. So that's something that Frankenhooker repeats here. And the guy is like, oh, yeah, I know. Like, he's thinking that she really is responding to him.
But if you look at her,
she clearly is just like,
she's clearly not, like, she's not with it, you know? And he clearly is taking advantage of her.
Yeah, he's not really listening to what she's saying. He's just promising her the world. I can take care of you.
Oh, it's so it grossed me the out.
Yeah. And so they walk over to like a private table, I would say, and Zorro sees that she has the Z brand on her arm.
Z? You say Z.
Oh, you say Z.
Yeah,
oh yeah. Z is American and Z is Canadian. I was like, yeah, Z. What do you mean? Oh yeah, Z.
Like Zed, like Zeddy from Zellers. Okay.
I don't even know what that means. Okay. So my next note is creepy guy goes down on her under the table.
Oh yeah, all you can see are his feet sticking out from under the table while he's
kicking.
Yeah, kicking.
And clearly he's doing something to her. There is contact made because similar to the other guys, electricity starts shooting through his body. Yep. And he explodes.
Yes, he does.
Great reactions from the people in the club at this point, by the way.
I was so happy. Oh, yeah. Yeah, really great reactions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zorro is now pissed, and he confronts Frankenhooker. Everyone else is running.
Yeah, everybody else is scared, but Zorro
is like, that's not your arm.
Yeah.
And like, what do you mean?
What are you
Wouldn't you
talking
say,
about?
how did you get this branding? But I guess maybe, if anything, he's more logical than the other people, where he's like, oh, your arm's stitched together.
Oh, yeah, he probably is. I'll give him that. He noticed.
Maybe.
She's being held together with giant stitches.
Yeah. And she ends up hitting him. Yeah. She is clearly very strong as Frankenhooker. She like knocks him over, and he's a big dude. He looks like he could be a wrestler. And he tries to punch her. Well, he does. He punches her after that.
Yeah. Her
head gets knocked clean back. Literally off the stitches in the front.
It made me cringe.
Yes, I love this prop though, because her head is hanging on by the back stitches, so it's just hanging behind her basically, and the eyes are like rolling back in a creepy way. I think I asked you, I was like, is that like an animatronic that they're using maybe?
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a really cool effect.
Literally hanging on by a thread or a stitch in this case. Yes, such a cool effect. And I don't really remember how he gets away, but I know Jeffrey gets her away.
Yes, Jeffrey saves the day. He runs in, he grabs her, and they take off.
Okay.
And Zorro does follow them.
Yes, he does follow.
Yeah. Jeffrey takes her back to his lab, and now he's bolting her neck back, her head back on her neck.
Yes.
He's using like big metal bolts. Would you call them bolts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Holding her together.
Yes, and zapping her with the electricity to kind of
like revive her.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth wakes up.
And she is Elizabeth.
Yes.
So she's talking like herself. She's like, where am I? What's going on?
Yeah, she doesn't realize that she has died, right? So she's kind of like, where am I? What's happening? Blah, blah, blah. And he explains to her that she died.
Yeah, she remembers the lawnmower. She's freaking out.
She kind of has a moment of like, but then she also has a moment of like, oh my God, I'm so glad that, we're back together and we're going to be together. And she, she's just happy to be alive.
Yeah. And once he explains to her what he did, he's like, yeah, I have all the notes over there of what I did. And this is how I did it. And she's like, this is amazing. You can save so many people. Like, I can't believe she's so proud of him.
She is. And he says, it's not a big deal. I can only do this with women. I can only bring women back to life.
He says the serum is estrogen based.
But the way he says it, like, oh, I can only bring women back. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
Like, what do you mean only women?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we know by now that he's a raging misogynist.
Yeah.
But
and you know what? I would even say what I love about this. I know we're not done yet with the whole story, but we're almost there. And one thing that I do love about this view on it, I guess, is that I do think that Jeffrey could easily be confused as someone who's not a misogynist if they're not paying close attention, because he says almost all the right things with like, he's not like a blatant one-dimensional heel, right? Where he's just like, oh, my girlfriend sucks, you know? He always says like, oh, I love her and da-da-da.
Like, he thinks he's a nice guy.
He thinks he's a nice guy, but in his actions, and there's very deep-rooted misogyny there.
He ain't a nice guy.
Where he's letting however many women die just to create what he views as the perfect woman. Obviously, there's an issue there. So, anyway.
But I see what you're saying.
Yes.
Like, he doesn't quite present as a vicious... like heel.
It almost seems like he's not malicious, but you're like, well, if you really break it down.
Yeah, like on the one hand, it's like, oh, he loves her so much and he wants to bring her back to life so they can be together forever. But when you really look at it, it's like, no, he wants to bring his version of what he thinks is the best version of Elizabeth by using the body parts of other women, which is like so and it's that idea of like perfectionism in, you know, in the person that you're interested in.
Yeah.
Right? It's like finding flaws in people and then thinking in your head how you can fix them.
Yeah. Because at no point in the movie does he ever show any interest in anything but Elizabeth's physical appearance.
Her body. That's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just physical appearance in general. It's never about her.
No.
It's always emphasized about, like, her face. She had a beautiful face.
She's gorgeous.
But he didn't seem to think her body was beautiful.
Yeah.
So he's explaining this to Elizabeth, who is also now starting to get a little upset when she realizes that she's made up of several different people.
Yeah, like at first
it's not her body.
Yeah, she starts to realize like, this isn't my arm, this isn't my whatever. Like, she starts to notice that she's stitched together.
Yes. And he does say, I will give him this. He says, I had to make a few changes. There wasn't enough left of you. That was the point. I was like, okay, if she did get mauled by this lawnmower and there wasn't enough of her body to put that together, I will give him that.
I think he was trying to justify his own means.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's, he's under the guise of, I just wanted to save you. When we know, the audience knows, that's not 100% true.
Based on the way he was measuring those girls earlier, I'm going to say, and also, once again, I keep going back to the fact that he killed all those women, and it wasn't even just like, I'm gonna sacrifice one life to save the love of mine.
Right.
You know, it was
he's almost like a cartoon, like, I don't want to say, he's kind of like a cartoon villain, but he's kind of like a cartoon version of like the worst guy ever. Do you know what I mean? Like it's almost like this is the worst guy thinking that he's a nice guy, which is usually the worst.
I was gonna say the ones who present as nice,
but they're
really,
actually terrible.
They have ulterior motives.
That is Jeffrey.
Yeah. That's how it feels to me.
Agreed.
And, so Zorro comes in at this point during this conversation.
Yes, he does. Oh, but we have to say, he does sneak in, but Elizabeth is less upset about the body parts because Jeffrey is telling her, like, now we can be together forever. I love you. I missed you. We're going to be together. And she's kind of coming around to that when Zorro slides in and then... Please explain.
Literally cuts his head off with a machete.
Decapitates him in one swipe.
For some reason, even though I had already watched it, when I rewatched it, in my memory, I thought he was knocking him out. And I totally forgot he just cuts his head off.
Just one swipe, heads off. And then he says to Elizabeth, like, you're coming with me because you're my property.
Yeah, he starts naming all the sex workers she's made up of. He's like, Crystal... Sugar, whatever their names were. Yeah.
Right.
All of the names. And then we get...
This is incredible. I think this might be my favorite part of the entire movie.
Besides everyone exploding in the hotel room, this is like definitely up there, top 2 for sure, where the freezer starts rumbling. Because remember, we've seen the freezer earlier get struck by lightning. The freezer starts rumbling and it tips over and out crawls. I don't even know how I would describe this. I struggled writing it even in my notes. Like... a bunch of random body parts melded together.
That have mutated into these little creatures that are absolutely disgusting and weird looking. And they remember Zorro.
Oh, they remember Zorro. Also, this reminded me of Society. The movie Society, if you've ever seen it.
No, 100%. I agree with that for sure. Yeah. Really cool looking creatures though. Like they're really gross looking, but I thought they were really neat.
One of them was an upside down torso. Like the bottom, like the boobs were on the bottom. And then I think at the top was the mouth where the vagina would have been.
Oh my God. It's so funny, but they come crawling out and they immediately go towards Zorro.
Yes. They literally drag him into the freezer and lock him in it.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I was so happy that at least Zorro gets the end.
Yes.
In the worst way possible.
Yeah. Oh, that's terrifying.
I loved it. It was great.
And the part of me was thinking, damn, I wish that happened to Jeffrey. But Jeffrey does get his.
Yes, he does.
So then we cut to Elizabeth is waking up Jeffrey, who is now on the table that she once was.
Yep.
And she mentions to him, you left really great notes. He's like, what happened? Where am I? Similar to what she did. Mm-hmm. You left really great notes, by the way. And would you like to describe the reveal?
Absolutely. She explains to him, she repeats to him, I could only use women parts because it only works on women.
Yeah.
And so we pan out and Jeffrey's head is been stitched onto a bunch of, I don't know if they would be more of the sex workers' body parts. Probably.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Though it didn't, yeah.
They don't specify, but let's just say he is stitched, his entire body is stitched together with different women's body parts.
Yes, and she even says to him, what I did may be a bit unorthodox, similar to what he was saying to her earlier.
Yeah.
It may be a bit unorthodox, but I brought you back.
But now we can be together forever, and I love you.
Yes.
And he obviously is horrified by this.
Yes.
He's horrified.
He doesn't like it when it's done to him.
Exactly, exactly. And what I thought was so funny about that scene is it can be taken a couple ways, right? Like, she could be sarcastically saying, like, now we can be together forever, as a play on what he was saying.
Yeah.
Or it could also be she loves him no matter what he looks like.
That's very true.
No matter what he is or what he looks like, she loves him and thinks he's the best.
Yeah, and she's like, okay, I'm like this, so now you're like this too.
And it's a stark contrast to how he views her.
Yeah.
Like, he looks at her like he can improve her. When she looks at him like, you don't even have to be improved upon. And that point sticks because in the beginning of the movie, she's raving about how smart he is.
Yeah.
And what kind of person he is. She ain't talking about what he looks like. She's really harping on his brain and
that's
and who
very
he
true.
is.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
That is what she talks about the whole time. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
They do emphasize that. Because imagine if you ask your partner or whoever, like, what do you love about me?
Yeah.
And they just say, oh, you're beautiful.
I love your tits.
That's even worse. If they just said you're beautiful.
You got a great ass.
I would be pissed.
I know.
I'm like, really, that's it? Because beauty fades.
Exactly. Like, could you imagine or the idea that your partner is looking at you and judging parts of your body.
Yeah.
And what they can improve. That's awful.
Yeah.
That's awful,
yeah,
right?
Horrible.
And it just shows that Elizabeth is she's a good person. And she legitimately loves Jeffrey. And Jeffrey, well, he's very questionable. He's a mad scientist, right?
Yeah.
From Frankenstein.
Yeah. And I mean, you could blame, I don't know, maybe the drill to the back of the head that was making him immoral or whatever. But
Sure, right? I mean, I think you have to be some type of person to even consider doing this.
Yeah.
But I really loved it. I thought it was such a fun, wild ride. It was not what I expected at all. I did not.
Same.
I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. Mm-hmm. I thought it was so funny.
I loved it when I first watched it. I mean, and the multiple times that I've watched it, but it also wasn't what I expected exactly. Mm-hmm. I had heard so much about it. I was hoping it was going to be good, but I didn't know that I was going to enjoy it this much.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really, really love Elizabeth.
Yeah,
I love her.
And the actress.
She's fantastic.
I can't believe she only has a few credits.
I know. She's a great actor. And, I saw a panel that they did at a con, and I wish I could remember, but I'll put it in the show notes. But she had like a purple wig on, and she just looks like she embraces that character, which really makes me happy. I just love that. Yeah. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah. And obviously this movie does have a lot of social commentary in it as well. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that it's subtle.
No,
I think you watch it, it's pretty clear what they're saying.
Absolutely, yeah. But they're doing it in a really, really fun, hilarious way. Yeah. It's really campy, it's really silly, it's really of the time. Yeah. Like, very much so. I think it's like a window into what the end of the 80s was like, or the 80s in general, even though this was 1990. But yeah. Yeah, and I'm actually really excited to go back and watch Basket Case and watch the 2 and 3 as well.
I want to as well. I know I've seen at least one of them, but I want to watch all 3.
Oh, and I also wanted to point out there is a character by the name of Casey. It's earlier in the film. We see on a TV. It's like a talk show.
Yes.
And they're talking about the sex workers being addicted to crack and basically the exploitation of sex workers. And this character of Casey is talking about how there needs to be, you know, programs in place, or basically like there needs to be some sort of help. And it's a really great scene. And it, again, the social commentary of it. But I wanted to point out that she is played by Beverly Bonner, who was also in Basket Case 1, 2, and Brain Damage.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that was great.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
That is really cool. I also have a couple fun facts for you.
Oh, let's hear it.
So, first of all, the sex workers that were used in the exploding scene, they were really having trouble finding SAG actresses to fill those roles because a lot of them...
It's a SAG film. So
it's a SAG film,
right,
yes.
Okay.
And a lot of those actresses would not do the nudity that they wanted to do. So, they actually went to Billy's Topless Bar, and they got a bunch of girls to do this, to sign up basically for varying levels of nudity.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
After SAG made them members.
What?
I think that's so cool.
Do you think any of them have more credits? Do you think any of them became actors?
I would love to look into that.
I actually really want to look into that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then there was another fun fact that you brought to my attention, that what was it? It was rated S or something?
Yes.
So was it MPAA said something to the effect of, congratulations, this movie is rated S for...
You're the first film to get a rating S for...
Yes, and I guess the producer obviously took issue with that and made it public.
Yeah.
Which that's terrible.
Yeah. Why, like...
And eventually it got an X rating.
And I'm like, out of all movies, like,
yeah,
you say that about this one and not... Anyway.
This is according to Joe Bob. I saw it on a clip of Joe Bob, who, by the way, we stan. We love Joe Bob.
Yes.
He's the best.
So, and also a lot of these fun facts I'm getting from the Blu-ray commentary that was added onto a Blu-ray edition of this movie.
Oh, awesome.
So this is actually from Henenlotter, the director.
Okay.
And so I didn't even tell you these ones.
Ooh.
So first of all, Henenlotter used the fake title Just Frankenstein in 90 in official communications and in copies of the script for the sole purpose of avoiding trouble related to people's reactions to the actual title.
Oh, wow.
Which is so smart.
That's very clever, yeah.
And he said it helped when they were looking for props, locations, and other necessities. Because imagine how many people would have turned down like Frankenhooker, what?
Right, they would. Yeah. Right, they would automatically just jump to the conclusion that whatever, it's terrible or something.
And then the last one that I wrote down, which might be my favorite, is that Henenlotter gave out the fake breasts as parting gifts at the end of the film's production. I didn't tell you that one.
That is, oh my God, do you think that they're still floating around?
So he signed them first. And from what I read, somebody who was looking for them could not find them on eBay still. But they probably exist somewhere. There were a lot of them.
Okay, I'm convinced that things like that are hidden somewhere in like an old granny's like attic.
Yes.
And eventually they'll come out. Could you imagine that? I would love to put that in my collection.
I was going to say, I really want one of those on my shelves. If you find one, please let me know.
I love that you saved that and didn't tell me.
Yeah.
That's amazing. If you guys enjoyed the Frankenhooker, please let us know. You can comment on all of our social media accounts at Chainsaw Girls Pod on TikTok, on Instagram, or on YouTube. You can also email us at it's chainsawgirlspod@gmail.com if you have suggestions, themes, whatever you want to talk to us about. Yes, please do that. And also, if you haven't yet, please subscribe and give us a 5-star rating because it really does help our podcast grow. We love you guys.
Okay, bye.